Welcome to API Conversations number 15 with paranormal investigator Kenny Biddle. This is your host, Paul Carr. And in today's conversation, we'll encounter a paranormal investigator who takes a skeptical approach to looking at strange phenomena, what he calls solving mysteries. Now, many of you who are fans of ghost hunting will not find Kenny's conclusions about ghost hunters and ghost hunting to be very palatable. But I would ask that you put that aside and just think about the methods he's talking about. Whatever you think about his conclusions, you can't doubt that he's done his homework. He's been to all these sites and he's done a lot of real hardcore investigation, tracking down a lot of leads, and that deserves some respect. So what I was hoping to get from this conversation, which I think we got, was Kenny discussing how he goes about doing it and what he considers to be important in solving mysteries. And I think he's got a lot of really important things to say about that. So this conversation with Kenny Biddle was recorded on the 13th of January, 2019. I am here with Kenny Biddle, paranormal investigator. Now, Kenny, I first heard of you last year when you came to Bethesda to give a talk to the National Capital Area Skeptics. Can you tell us a bit more about how you got into investigating ghosts and the paranormal and so forth, and how your views of that have changed over time?
Yeah, I've always been interested in this kind of stuff. I don't know, since I can remember, I have been interested in monsters and ghosts and UFOs and aliens. I'm a huge sci-fi geek, a big nerd. I collect all kinds of stuff from movies and TV, but I've always been interested in this stuff. And once I got onto this new thing back then called the internet, I realized, hey, there's other people out there that do this, and I don't have to rely on just the 3 books on the topic that were in my Catholic school, because I grew up in a mostly Catholic household, so I went to Catholic school growing up. So as you can imagine, there wasn't much material in the school library for me to research these kind of things. So I really got into it, and when I got on the internet, I found other people close by. I joined a ghost hunting group that was in the Philadelphia area, and went out with them, and I started listening to them. They were confident in what they were doing. So I kind of took on their beliefs and said, all right, you guys are getting these strange lights in your photographs and video. I must be getting ghosts, because that's what they're getting. That's what I'm getting. And, that's what they're saying this is. And over the years, as I started learning more and more, I started learning more about photography. And as I did that, I understood how light works, how our cameras, the sensors of film, pick up the light, record the light, and what you can do to make a whole bunch of anomalies and just screw with the end product, which is the photograph.
Yeah, I'd like to, we'll go into that more in depth later, but this is something I've noticed a lot, is that people don't understand what a photograph is.
Yeah,
they think it's the thing that was out there, right? And okay, well, we'll talk about more about that later. Go ahead.
I get where you're coming from, but yeah, I guess the more and more I learned, the more I understood better what I was doing and what I was doing wrong, which is more important. And I reached out to several people, and one of them happened to be Ben Rafford, the deputy editor of Skeptical Inquirer magazine. And he challenged me at one point, and this was years ago. But he challenged me on some of the ideas that I had, and that made me want to look into it more, which I did, and discovered that I was wrong. And that really was eye-opening to me. And it made me thirst for more knowledge, because I hate being wrong. I absolutely hate it. And my OCD kicks in, and I want to make sure it's right. So that's what I did, and that was my gateway into more skeptical outlooks. I've researched more, I learned more, I associated with people that were actual experts and experienced people in their respective fields of photography, of science, of the different sciences, and either confirmed or refuted what I had previously thought. And that pretty much led me to where I am today. I research these cases. I look into mysteries, whether it's ghosts, mostly ghosts, but UFOs, some cryptids, mostly Bigfoot, and any other mysteries. I mean, I even did one that involved Elvis Presley, which is really cool. But I investigate these mysteries and dig deep, and I find the sources. I've learned techniques where I can actually solve these mysteries, not just make up stuff along the way that coincides with my beliefs, but I solve the mysteries, and it's exciting. It's that Scooby-Doo feeling where I, like, after the 23 minutes, I solved the case and I can unmask Man Wilson, out of the ghost costume. It's exhilarating, and I love it, and that's where I am.
Uh-huh. Now, when at your talk with Bethesda, you mentioned that you've, over the years, distilled a few basic principles of how to proceed on investigation. Could you kind of go over some of the main ones that you think are most important?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I can hit a bunch of them, and it really depends on what the case is, what the mystery is.
Sure.
But some of them, I mean, I can give you an overview real quick, and then we can go through some of them.
Okay.
Basically, whenever you can, try to visit the location. That's important, because getting to the location it gives you a better understanding of what's going on, what things are related to other things, where things are placed. There's a whole lot of details you won't get from sitting in a chair behind a computer. So always visit the location. Find out who's making a claim. It's very important, because you can look up people on the internet now. No one's private. No one has privacy. It's just gone with the internet. And you can look up people and find out if they have made these claims before, if they're known to make hoaxes, if they've had a record of shady kind of business dealings. And you can apply that to your understanding of who they are and who's making this claim. If this guy is making a claim that they caught a Bigfoot, and you do some research and find out that he's done this 3 times before, and then exposed himself as a hoax, came out and said, "Oh, I was just kidding," then this guy has a reputation, and most likely his claim is false. What else? Read the comments. That's a big thing. We can get into that a little bit later, especially if you want to talk about the Elvis Presley thing. But reading the comments on videos and postings and just social media can sometimes give you a clue. It's a pain in the ass.
Yes.
Honestly, because usually there's thousands of comments, or there's people arguing, and there's a lot of junk in there that really has nothing to do with you or the topic. But there might be a kernel of truth in there that helps you out, and that's the clue that breaks the case. Speak with the locals. That's a big thing, because if you can go to a location, which you always should, talk to the locals in the area, the neighbors, people in town, the mailman, stuff like that are in the area all the time, that can tell you if there was some trouble before, like unusual things happened, or if there's sightings of, say, like a Bigfoot or something. You can talk to the neighbors and find out, oh, you know what? That's a local, that's a bear that roams around. We know about it. We've seen them dozens of times, and it helps solve the case. Another thing is taking a step back, because if you're investigating claims, I get excited. I still get excited every time I start investigating a mystery. But when you get to the location and you have that overwhelming excitement, like, all right, I'm here. I'm gonna solve this case. I'm gonna see what's going on. Sometimes you just got to stop, take that deep breath, and step back and look at the area in a slow manner, in a patient manner, because that's when you start noticing little clues in the area, like maybe a vent that was clear or hidden behind a door that nobody noticed before, and that's where mysterious ghostly noises are coming from. Stuff like that. Uh, and then there was one topic that was just be creative, and that was a general thing where think outside the box. Follow leads. When you're tracking down a story, when you're looking into a mystery, there are sometimes you get one lead, sometimes you get 6 or 7 leads, and you're like, wow, this is a lot of work. Which investigating mysteries is a lot of work. Take the time, go through every lead, run its course. See where it leads you, because it might lead you to the conclusion, the answer that you're looking for, or it might lead to a dead end. But that's part of the learning curve. You might get to the dead end and say, all right, this was not a waste of time. I know this is a dead end now. And whereas some of the ghost hunters and UFO hunters and cryptids that I've dealt with will take that dead end. They don't bother to research it, and they still use it as quote unquote evidence for their case. So that's an overview.
Yeah. Now the this whole notion of evidence for ghosts is something that's always confused me. I know you've had a lot of contact with this community, so how do they explain? Like I'm 5. Do they know what a ghost is? Do they have a definition of a ghost?
No. I mean, it's broad. I mean, you can get a general definition of a ghost is the spirit of a deceased person. And that's probably the most general description I can get. But then otherwise, when you want to get into descriptions, there's all kinds of descriptions, and nobody can agree exactly what a ghost is supposed to look like, what it's supposed to be able to do, what it can't do. I mean, basically, ghosts are magic Hollywood entities because they can pretty much do anything they want depending on the situation and who's telling you.
Oh, so just about anything can be evidence then?
Yes.
Because you haven't defined what the hypothesis is until you get the evidence.
So we don't know what the qualities of a ghost is. Therefore, we can't measure for one. However, on the flip side of that coin, that usually means to the majority of ghost hunters that I've interacted with that anything strange is evidence of a ghost.
Oh, okay. So that's why they take all this equipment with them into a haunted house, right? Because anything that shows up that's above background is a ghost. I mean,
well, that's that's a hard question. I mean, it's yes. The short answer is yes. They take all this equipment in mostly because, and this is my personal observations, that they see it on TV. They see other ghost hunters using it. They see it on TV, and as a general rule, ghost hunters love things that light up and make noise, and that's just the basic idea of it. If it lights up with LEDs, they love it. If it makes noises, beeps or boops or squeals, they love it, and they take it with you. And you can, if your gadget has both of those, you can sell it, guaranteed. But they take it in, and most of them do what they say are base readings. And they try to go into the location and walk around with their equipment and take readings at the beginning of their investigation. And unfortunately, they think this is a good baseline when it's not. They literally spend a few seconds, maybe a minute in each room with several devices, and then they move on to the next room. And that is their baseline. So anything, I mean, if you have a change in oh my gosh, if a generator kicks on, if a refrigerator kicks on and draws a little bit of extra power from the house current, you're going to have a spike in their electromagnetic field meters. And if you only took a few seconds worth of base readings in the beginning and none of that stuff happened, then you're not going to understand that spike is natural. There's a natural explanation for that.
Well, do they try to disprove that there's something anomalous going on? I mean, do they?
It depends on what group it is.
I see.
To be fair, there are some that do it. and I've worked with them, and they're really good at that. They get some kind of weird reading on one of their devices, and they really try to track it down. And some of them do. They find the source, and they realize, okay, it's power lines in the wall, the refrigerator kicked on down in the basement, an air conditioner upstairs kicked on, this and that. They do a good job, but there's a lot more that don't. That will literally sit in one room, and if one of these meters beeps or lights up, nobody gets up. Nobody goes to try to find a source. They sit there and just let it go, and they are convinced from that moment that they're interacting with a ghost.
Now, do they? I've seen shows where they call out to the ghost, and they're waiting for some kind of noise to come back. And they're recording that, and they get, what do they call that? EVP or something?
EVP, yeah, electronic voice phenomenon.
Can you explain that a little bit more? I find it baffling.
Because it is. The basic idea is that they leave recorders out. And I mean, many years ago, I was a ghost hunter too. And I used to use cassette tapes. But the basic idea is that you put a recorder out, whether it's a tape, magnetic tape, or use a digital recorder. You put it out there, you hit record, and you ask questions. With the idea that there is a ghost or entity or something that's in the room that you can communicate with, interact with. And when you play back that recording, and back up a second here, you ask questions, you leave empty spaces there for the ghost to respond. So there's always a question, and then maybe 5 to 10 seconds before you ask another question. So when you play back that recording, any little noises that resemble speech, they will take as an answer. It could be just a noise. It could be a knock. It literally could be that. And they'll take it as a response, as if something's trying to communicate with them. And when you listen to some of the recordings, I mean, there's a large range of noises, from stomach growling, people shifting as they're sitting down on a chair or on the floor. There's furniture that moves. You can hear voices from outside, because there are no controls in place when these recordings are done. So if you have people walking by outside on the sidewalk, you might be able to pick their voices up. Cars, vehicles, anything outside, you might be able to pick it up. And that's the idea, that they are asking questions, they're getting some kind of response, and then they interpret the responses usually favorable towards what they're expecting. And that's an EVP session.
So are you not aware of any EVPs that are like unambiguously in support of the hypothesis that a spirit is responding?
No, I've not heard, because honestly, some of the questions are just out there. They ask, like, how many people are here? How many ghosts are here with you? And you might hear something, and if it has to do with like a number, if it sounds like a number 5 or something like that, what good is that? That doesn't do anything for me. That it doesn't solve the case, doesn't solve the mystery of what's going on here. It's just a random noise that I hear, that one person might hear 5, another person might hear dive, or something completely different. And that's one of the big issues with this, is that if you play just that recording, just the EVP part, especially without the question, to different people, you're going to get different responses. Not everyone hears the same thing.
Don't they use radios as well? Or
oh my, yes, I hate those things. They're called push boxes. They're one of the most annoying things you can possibly listen to. It's basically they use the scanning feature. So when you listen to a radio station, you want to go to the next one, you hit the scan button, and it goes up to the next station, the next broadcast that comes in clearly.
right.
And they modify the radio so that it doesn't stop, so it continues to scan, and it also takes out the muting effect, so you hear everything. And it's basically like, I'm sure I'm going to date myself, but I'm sure you can relate this. When you had the old radios with the dial, when you were in the car with this car stereos and you had to change the channel
Sure.
and use the dial going up and down, seeing what's there. That's exactly what this sounds like. And I didn't get ghosts when back then when I was doing it, and I still don't get ghosts now. But that's the basic idea. It's you hear the entire you hear the radio scan through the entire band, AM or FM, and you hear all the snippets of radio stations from news and commercials and sports and music. You hear it all. And it's usually like just a second or maybe half a second of each station, but it's enough that you can get some kind of like either one word or part of a word. And that's what they interpret as responses. And it's completely subjective because I've sat there with people doing this and they will ask a question like, oh, what's your name? So that's the question they ask. And they wait. And I hear parts of commercials. Sometimes I hear the commercial that I recognize, but you hear parts of the commercials or the broadcast that are not names. They ignore it until they get something that sounds like Mark or John. And once they hear what they want to hear, boom, that's it. They have evidence of a ghost communicating.
Okay, well, can you give us some examples of investigations you've been on where, some of the principles you've enunciated were of value?
Yeah. One of them was, well, there's a good one. It was pretty short. There was a book that came out. It was about ghosts of what was it? Colonial Williamsburg, and it was a book of ghost pictures by a guy. I believe his last name was Scullion, and the entire book was nothing but pictures, mostly long exposures. And he was doing a lecture. He was doing a lecture as part of a paranormal conference, and I was going to investigate him. I was going to go down and attend the lecture, but I couldn't. So I started looking into him and what he was doing and how he was getting these photos. And most of the photos I was able to figure out he was either using long exposures combined with photoshopping faces from paintings, folk art paintings, because they were horrible, horrible paintings. But one in particular came up, and it was a ghost that he claimed to have captured in Gettysburg. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania is only about 2.5 hours from me. I've been there dozens and dozens of times. And in the description for this photograph, which looked like a white figure on a pink background, he was using a camera called it was an infrared camera, but ghost hunters like to call them full spectrum cameras. Mm-hmm. It sounds fancier.
Yeah.
But he took a picture, and then the description says, as he was going through Little Round Top, seconds later, I picked up a white figure near the trees. And in the next photo, part of it turned out navy blue, indicative of a Union uniform. As I jumped from one boulder to another to possibly get a better photo of the figure, I saw a dark shadow move into the trees from the path. And on his blog, which is where I just read from, he has 2 pictures of this alleged ghost. And that's what he claimed it was, an apparition that he caught. Unfortunately for him, I recognized the apparition. And it was actually a statue. It was a statue that was, I forget the exact statue it was. I don't have notes in front of me. But it was a statue right off a Little Round Top that I've been to many times. And I contacted a friend of mine that lives in Gettysburg. I actually went out and met him, and we took pictures of this statue, which is on top of a monument. It actually raises about 25 to 30 feet in the air, and it's visible from the entire top of Little Round Top. So no matter where you are on top of this little hill, you can see this monument. It's not hidden. It's not secret. It's right out in the open. And this was one where I used the idea of going to the location because I could. And then I actually spoke to a local because the friend of mine that I contacted was a history professor. And he knew every monument on the battlefields. And when I sent him the picture, he confirmed it right away. And we actually went out, we got a picture, we lined it up I lined up my camera with the image of the alleged ghost, and we were able to match it perfectly. And I called him out on it, and he was very upset about it. Tried to explain it that maybe it was just wrong, maybe he didn't notice it, but it's out in the open. There's no way. He was pointing the camera right at this statue. There's nothing else in the area. So that was one example. The other example, let's see, the one with Elvis was really fun. And the idea behind that was that there's a conspiracy theory that Elvis Presley showed up in the movie Home Alone.
Ah, yes.
Have you seen this one?
Well, yeah, you talked about that at your lecture. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And that was showing what happens when you read the comments. And I got this actually because Benjamin Radford does a podcast called Squaring the Strange, and they had talked on one of the episodes about movie myths and conspiracy theories with movies and stuff like that. And this came up. And as a joke, the host of the podcast challenged me to solve this mystery. And I liked it because it was like, all right, this is a cool challenge. Is it possible for me to find an extra that played in like under a minute in a movie that was filmed 16, 17 years ago? Even more. It was like 20 something years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was 1990. That's when it was out. So yeah, long time ago. And the big break in it, because I did start looking at extras and how they got into movies, and then actor guilds, and seeing if they listed all the extras that were hired. And I was getting a dead end with that. And this is one of the cases where reading the comments actually solved the case, because I start looking on conspiracy theory videos, which it's really difficult to watch because their ideas are so out there. But I started reading the comments, and I came across one that actually named a person. It's because the commenter said this was my late husband and named the guy. And so I followed up on it. I was able to find his social media page because, like I said, nobody's private anymore. You can find a social media page on almost anybody. Found pictures of this gentleman and was able to match it up perfectly with the movie. And through social media, I found the gentleman's son, contacted his son, and talked to him on the phone for about 2 hours. He was able to not only confirm that it was his father that was the extra in the movie, the Elvis Presley, but he was able to provide me with a poster that was a gift from the studio with his father and Macaulay Culkin together. So, boom, that case was solved by reading the comments and just going through social media and finding people.
Now, I wanted to ask you, since this comes up in our own podcast quite a bit, and some of the people we interact with, there are people who are serial experiencers who seem to be not out to hoax anyone. They just have these. Now, some of the experiences are of non-human entities, and some are even weirder than that. Some of them are straight out of the X-Files. What's your thoughts on people who report these anomalous experiences frequently?
I think, and unfortunately, this is going to be come off as more of a bias, but I think most of them just need attention, and not in a way that says, "Oh, I'm just looking to be popular and be a celebrity." It's more of a way to interact with others. Maybe they are very solitary kind of people that don't have a lot of friends, or and I'm trying not to be mean with that, even though it sounds like it, and as I'm saying it, it sounds like it. But I think they really want attention, They want someone to come out and pay attention to them. When you have to report these experiences over and over and over again, and I've seen some of them. I've dealt with some of these people, and the first couple times I will entertain it. I will go out, because if you come to me with a claim, I'm going to check it out. I'm not going to shoo you away. I'm going to try and figure out what's going on. But after the fourth or fifth time of saying no, it's not what you think. It's not an alien. It's not a ghost. Bigfoot's not coming in your back door and stealing your food at night. It's you. It's your neighbor. It's some kind of plausible explanation that you can find, demonstrate, and prove to them. After the fourth or fifth or sixth time, I'm done. I kind of just I stop talking to them. I ignore them, because I think they're just out for attention. They just need somebody to come over, to hang out with them, and it gets weird. And you run into that problem when you have people that, like families that are really, really in that belief where they have a ghost in their house, and they're convinced because they've had ghost hunting teams over, and all of them have said it's haunted. And then somebody like me comes along and looks at everything, looks at the details, and say, no, you know what? I can demonstrate what happened. And we explain every single claim to where they understand that there's no ghost. And now you run into that problem that every time something strange happens, they call you. And now you become their savior every week. And that develops into what you're talking about.
Even after you've explained everything to them before?
Yes. Then it becomes, instead of, oh, we had this happen too, it becomes, oh, I know you helped us out before, but yesterday this happened. Can you explain that now? And then the following week, it's, hey, you know what? Something weird happened the other day. Can you help with this? And I don't mind little things here and there, but when it becomes every week, or every couple days, then it's like, they're obviously not learning.
Right.
But I'm trying to teach them.
Are these people that report poltergeists or some other type of entity?
Well, the term poltergeist doesn't really come up much. I think it's just strange things. They had what they believed was a ghost, and they attributed everything to that. Because when you watch, well, unfortunately, if you have to watch these ghost hunting shows, I don't know why they're popular, because they suck. But you have to watch them. You can see that there's a plethora of things that will convince somebody a place is haunted, from noises and things moving to shadows and lights, and just like a frame falling down on a shelf. That's a ghost to these people, and there's so much that can happen. So it gets really involved. It's not just one thing. It's dozens and dozens of different types of things that can cause people to believe something's haunted. So you're constantly going through and saying, okay, it's not this, it's not that. So the poltergeist thing, I think that was more, I know there's been cases like the Enfield poltergeist case, and the stuff like that has been labeled a poltergeist, but I don't think people use that label too much anymore.
Yeah, I've never done one myself, but I would like to. I'd like to run something by you just to see what you think. We had one case that we looked into a couple of years ago. Was a married couple in the upper Midwest, salt of the earth, hardworking people. No ghosts involved as far as they were concerned, but they had a long sequence of apparently unrelated and very strange experiences that each one, and they agreed that these experiences had taken place. And some of them were very bizarre. Like they had an added time experience, for example, where something that should have taken 4 or 5 hours took 15 minutes. And they both had that experience on the same day at the same time. They don't seem to be particularly lonely people, or in fact, they didn't want any public attention at all. the wife in particular thought it was some kind of evil entity, maybe demonic, and wanted it out of her life. Do you come across that very often, or is it more attention seeking?
I think I know what you're getting at. Whereas people they string events together and think it's all because of the same cause. Is that what you're getting at?
Well, not only that, but all these events were very strange and co-experienced. And, well, not all of them were co-experienced, but many of them were.
Yeah. I guess what I can relate to is that people have had like a dozen or so strange events. They have one night they hear something upstairs and nobody was home. And then the next night or two, they see a shadow. And then the next night, something's missing, like their keys are missing or something like that. And they have a lot of experiences that they attribute to the same entity. Like they look at every experience and say, well, you know what? All this stuff happened in my house. My house must be haunted. Whereas I see it as, okay, those were three, at least that I named, three different experiences. And we have to look at each experience separately. We can't connect them or say that they're connected before we actually prove that they're connected. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like you lost your keys one night and then 2 days later you see a shadow walking down the hall or across the hall.
Well, these particular experiences were extremely vivid and very strange. If, for example, I told you about the added time experience, which one experience they were seeing strange things zipping around the sky, and he went outside and was hit with a beam of light, and he claims that it improved his health. and the wife, who was a nurse, corroborated that. These were not just little, odds and ends things. These were very vivid, very weird experiences. I have no way of telling you how real they were, because, I wasn't present for any of them, but, they all seem to take place within a period of a couple of years, and then they stopped. She claims it because she prayed them away, but, I
guess I understand. I think what you're getting at now, and I think my issue with that would be that, did we interview them separately right after the event, or did they have time to talk to each other?
Oh, they had time to talk to each other. Yeah.
That's usually the issue that I find, is that the witnesses that see the same thing or experience the same event, they talk to each other, and even if they have different versions, the more they talk to each other, the more they start to merge together. Mm-hmm. And one of them says, oh, well, I saw this. And the second one will say, well, I didn't see that, but okay, I was there, so that must have happened. And they incorporate details from each other's story until it's one story. And I don't know exactly, I don't know what the term is and exactly how to explain it, but people have a tendency to agree because they don't want to make someone else, especially if somebody is trusted or loved, look foolish. So if they don't remember a detail happening, they will still agree with that person that it happened, even if they didn't experience it themselves. But just having them talk to each other for so long before they were interviewed, I guess by you guys, or whoever interviewed them, they have time to get their story straight. Not deliberately. I mean, I didn't get the sense that they were hoaxing me at all. Yeah. I mean, granted, some people do that to hoax people, but I mean, for the most part, I don't think it would be hoaxing. It's just they've told the story so many times, and they've compared stories, and they've helped each other out with missing information that it becomes one story.
Right. That's plausible. I don't know if we have any, good scientific studies of that sort of thing, but, especially when it comes to the more vivid experiences,
Right.
That are recalled. Like there was one case where this couple were together in a car, and their car was dive bombed by a red light, and it was absolutely terrifying. And the wife doesn't remember very much about what happened after that. Neither of them do, actually. And then but that was probably a good 8 years before they talked to us.
Oh wow. Yeah. That's a lot. And that's 8 years, big gap. Okay.
Yeah.
So they had plenty of time to talk to each other, tell the story, retell the story over and over again. And it's that comment about they don't really remember, or at least the wife doesn't really remember what happened right afterwards, is kind of suspicious to me, because you had a big event. This is monumental. If you had this weird, strange event, but you don't remember what happened right after, how confident are they in the details that they related to you? Like, do you remember what happened, or because we can go do research and find out there's plenty of studies about human memory, about how much it sucks. It's not accurate. And trying to remember details from something that happened 8 years ago, especially when you got influenced, you have an influence in your partner, your husband and wife, that has the same kind of story going on. There's a lot to consider when you listen to that story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does seem like some of the strangest cases we have are long ago and far away sort of stories.
Right.
There's not this happened yesterday sort of situation. Right. And I'd love to get my teeth into something like that, but we don't have that. We don't have very many cases like that. We have things where people said, well, back in 2000, so this happened, and it was very strange. But how, what can we do with that information? We can't even find corroboration at that point.
Right. It's extremely hard to find other witnesses or, any kind of physical evidence in the area, because you're talking 8 years ago. The area might change completely or not even there anymore.
Yeah. Well, one case we had was a very strange experience that these two gentlemen had in a convenience store in the California desert. And I don't think that store is even there anymore. And tracking down who the clerks or the managers of the store is almost impossible.
Right.
So the only way I could do it, I think, is if we could go to that small town in California and start talking to the locals, which I wish we had done.
Yeah. And it's just hard. That's part of the job, if you will, that you can't investigate everything. And you got to I pick and choose. I had to realize, because I wanted to investigate every single thing that came across my computer. Everything that came to me, I wanted to investigate. But you have to pick and choose. You can't investigate all of them, because sometimes there's no means. Sometimes there's nothing left to investigate.
Yeah. Now you live in Pennsylvania, right? So
yes.
So you mostly investigate things that are within a day's drive or so of that area. But now. Have you done very many UFO cases?
I haven't done many where I've gone out. I've done two. I've done two, because I do with MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network.
Right.
I do work with some of the field investigators that are in my area, and they send me photos. They usually send me photos to analyze, to take a look at, and give them my opinion on what I see. And once in a while, I've actually said, hey, you know what? I'd like to come out and see this area, where this photograph was taken, because I have some questions, and they've let me come along. But unfortunately, some of the people were a little odd.
Yeah.
The witnesses, they were a little odd and scared me. I always say, like, I delved into every paranormal aspect. And the UFO people are the ones that probably worry me the most. But yeah, I've been able to go out and take part in investigations and help out a little bit.
Yeah. Now, I said that we'd get back into the topic of photography. I know you've probably looked at a lot of ghost photographs in your day. What do you find are some of the most common misconceptions about photographs?
That they record exactly what people think is in the environment. And it's like, once you take a picture, that's it. And the common phrase, the camera doesn't lie. I mean, the camera shows you what it sees in a two-dimensional format. And you got to take that with the consideration of, okay, it's two-dimensional, it's not seeing everything. And I think that's the misconception of ghost hunters and UFO people and Bigfoot hunters, is that the camera doesn't lie. If it catches something strange, that is absolutely something strange. No doubt about it. And that's just wrong. That's the wrong attitude to have, because you can take a picture and without understanding how light works and shadows fall and angles, and I mean, so much of what can cause different anomalies, reflections and reflective surfaces and dust particles in the air and just someone's long hair that gets in the way. There's so many things that can make weird things show up in your photographs. I think the common idea is that, when you take a picture, all you got to do is push the button, and that's it. You push a button and it magically records what you're looking at. And there's just more in that process. And it's taken me years, and I still don't know everything. I don't consider myself an expert. I'm pretty good at what I do. I know enough and decent enough to know what I'm looking at most of the time, and I can figure out and replicate a lot of anomaly pictures. I can replicate a lot of ghosts. I can replicate Bigfoot and UFOs, and I've done it more times than I care to remember, just to demonstrate for people. But I think the biggest concept is that people think once you push that button, then it records exactly what is happening, and it's just not.
Mm-hmm. Well, Kenny, I think we'll wrap it up here. Any final thoughts you want to leave us with?
My tagline is always never stop learning. And I can't promote that enough. I've gotten to where I am today, just a researcher. I was given a column for Skeptical Inquirer magazine online because of the research that I do. And the work that I do, the research, is all because I never stop learning. I continue to read books and papers on different topics, not just things I'm comfortable with. I go outside of my comfort zone. If I'm investigating anything from Elvis Presley to, I don't know, a film director that's trying to prove ghosts exist, to a UFO in someone's backyard, whatever comes up, I'm researching everything. I'm learning more about different topics that I never knew about before. And that helps me throughout my daily life. So my final thought, my final advice, never stop learning. Learn something every day.
Great. That's a good thought to leave us on. Well, thanks, Kenny. It's been a really interesting conversation. And we'll have, cool. All right. Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Once again, thanks to our guest, Kenny Biddle, here on conversation number 15 of API Conversations. We know that some of you may disagree strongly with Kenny, others may agree strongly. I'd like to hear your opinion on the thing. You can register that opinion in lots of different places. We have a subreddit for API case files where there will be a post for this conversation. There is a Facebook group which we recently started, and we hope you feel free to join us over there. And also, you can just go straight to our blog on reportaufo.org and comment on the blog post for this podcast episode. If you click on the podcasts tab on that episode, you will get what you need to comment on that particular episode. You can also find us on Twitter at API Case Files. We'd be happy to look at your comment there as well. So by all means, contact us if you have anything to say about this at all. And maybe you could suggest to us who our next guest should be. Maybe someone who doesn't agree with Kenny, maybe someone who's done comparable levels of investigative work. So let us know what you think. If you have anything else to say to us, like comments or questions for our next episode. Now, episode 14 of API Case Files is almost done. So it would be on episode 15 of API Case Files. If you have a question or comment for that, please get in touch with us. You can email us on Proton Mail, report a UFO at protonmail.com. You can leave a comment directly on our blog. There's lots of ways to get in touch with us. You can contact us at ufo@aerial-phenomenon.org. It's another email address you can use. We have a contact form on our blog that you can use. So there's no end of ways to get a hold of us. You can comment on the Facebook group, whatever works for you. So again, that's episode 15. I'm not sure exactly when it'll be out. I'm thinking probably sometime in the spring after the thaw. We'll have that one out. Episode 14 will be out very soon. This is the middle of January, and I think that'll probably be out by the end of January, if not early February. The other thing that I would like to encourage you to do, if you have a recent UFO sighting, or you know someone who has had a recent UFO sighting, please send them to reportaufo.org, and we'll get started on an investigation. We have had a decent number of reports lately, but we could handle more. And we also, if we get enough, we'll recruit more field investigators. Right now, we're not actively recruiting field investigators, but we could be looking for people to help us with analysis or with other aspects of our organization. So please go to our website. There's a page there called Join API where you can get more information about what it takes. It's not easy being a UFO field investigator. It takes persistence. It takes tough discipline. You have to track down a lot of leads, most of which go nowhere. And it takes patience, a lot of patience, and teamwork. We work together, we peer review each other, and sometimes things are a little rough there, and nobody should take it personally. And we will have the purpose of that is, of course, to do better investigative work. So I would encourage you to do that. Check out our YouTube channel also. Our YouTube channel on YouTube, there's a link there on our website, which takes you to our channel for API Case Files, or you can just search for API Case Files on YouTube. We have several playlists, and we're putting up new videos on an almost weekly basis, so please go over there and subscribe. This is material which is complementary to API Case Files, but also includes the audio from API Case Files. So thank you, Kenny Biddle, and thank you, listeners. We hope to hear from you very soon. API Case Files is released under the Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike license. Music is by DJ Spooky. For more information, please visit apicasefiles.com.